Trump issued an executive order ending illegal DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility mandates, policies, programs, preferences, and activities in the federal government under whatever name they appear. And most people have no idea what the heck that means, but I'll tell you, it means you can take the pronouns out of your bio.
At least he gets the concept.
Pronoun police. You said he, which is not Shadow the Hedgehog's preferred pronoun.
I'm Bridget Phetasy, and this is your Dumpster Fire. Welcome to Dumpster Fire, where we make burgers out of your sacred cows. If your sacred cow is DEI, I have news for you. It's DEAD.
Damn!
We've covered diversity, equity, and inclusion on this program many times before. I've talked about how it sounds like something you would hear over a microphone when you're getting called down to a creepy office behind a steel door in which you get disappeared for saying something that was maybe considered a microaggression. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Please report to the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. 13 microaggressions, and now one thought crime. Please report immediately to the Department of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Those words to normies sound very nice and innocent, though. Diversity, equity, inclusion. What could possibly be so wrong with diversity, with equity, with inclusion? It's how this stuff got snuck into our society, but it replaced merit, equality, and freedom of speech. I will explain to you how. When I mentioned this to a boomer adult in my life, they said, Bridge, what's DEI? Because now it's everywhere. It's basically wokeness. Whatever you think of as wokeness, that's generally DEI is somehow involved. When you hear words like inclusivity, when you hear about things like microaggressions, when you hear about going to implicit bias training, if you had to attend an implicit bias training, all of these are DEI incentives. All of these things are DEI programs. When you hear about Robin DiAngelo having dinners with white ladies and lecturing about their white privilege is another one. Throughout academia, you have a lot of these programs coming through the language of social justice. You also have it coming through all of these useless degrees like gender ideology and queer studies, fat studies, all of the dumb studies that basically they created an entire economy around, an entire place to put all of these people coming out with useless degrees in nonsense. They made them infest HR departments. They took over academia. They took over your probably corporate workplaces. So this has infested pretty much every level of our society. The most kind of insidious and I think horrific instances of this is how it's gone into our academics, all the way down to K through 12, where you're basically teaching young children how to divide each other up by race. Inserting this ideology in children, it is so toxic and destructive. At its core, it's completely regressive. It's actually racist. It's not at all progressive in any way, shape, or form. It's regressive.
What is it? What have you done?
People of all colors and creeds holding hands beneath a rainbow.
Good. That wasn't so hard, was it? Now do it again.
It gets very confusing to people because they cloak it in all these really nice sounding words like equity. And they'll move it away from things like equality. So for people who don't know, I hate for this to be like a freaking TED Talk, but this episode is going to have to be, and you're just going to have to bear with me. Concepts of equity and equality are often discussed in the context of social justice, resource distribution, and policy making, but they embody distinct approaches to addressing fairness. Equality is treating everyone the same. It's providing identical resources or opportunities without regard to individual differences. For example, equality in education might mean that every student gets the same textbook, the same class time, and the same tests. And then you have equity, which on the other hand, I do believe, we've talked about this on the other podcast, there are some good hearted ideas in wokeness or whatever you want to call it. Equity involves recognizing that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. Equity acknowledges that not everybody starts from the same place due to various social, economic, or cultural barriers. Thus, it might involve providing additional support or resources to certain groups to compensate for disadvantages. For example, again, in education, equity might mean offering extra tutoring for students from underprivileged backgrounds or providing language support for non-native speakers. This all sounds good as a concept, and a lot of DEI advocates will spew this answer to you when they're talking about how important it is. But the key phrase in there is to reach an equal outcome. Equity includes the belief that fairness means equal outcomes, a flat playing field regardless of the amount of effort, merit, and skill an individual exhibits. Achieved, if necessary, by unequal treatment. This is very important to this notion. Biased competition and preferential judging, which is inherently discriminatory. By the way, Harvard, for example, has been sued for this by the Asian community for discriminating against Asians. Essentially, they've inserted all of these quotas into these federal programs under the name of DEI incentives, etc. And even so far as getting federal money, you have to have certain quotas of all of these different groups and make sure that you meet all your quotas. And this is how you got this kind of oppression Olympics, as you've heard. The best way to explain it to somebody who doesn't understand any of this is if you are talking about something like air traffic control, do you want the best person for the job or do you want the person meeting some kind of federal quota? This is essentially what's been happening with DEI. And the executive order mandates the closure of DEI offices, the removal of DEI goals from performance requirements, and the cessation of related training and grants. It also requires federal agencies to place all DEI staff on paid leave and develop plans for their eventual layoffs. So when you look at the amount of money, particularly in education, which is when you see the amount of bureaucratic bloat that has occurred in all of our education systems, particularly public schools, how there's just been an administrative state that constantly increases. You see it in HR, you see it everywhere, and the kids still don't know how to freaking read or do math, and they're learning all about their privilege, and they're learning all about systemic bias and all of this crap that's not going to help them at all, and maybe teach them wrongly that they're some kind of victim and that they don't stand a chance and that life isn't fair. Well, guess what? Life isn't fair. And essentially, all of this boils down to the belief that you can somehow make life fair. And I'm sorry, you can't.
Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something.
You can have the best education in the world and you can still be a drug addicted fuck up. Trust me, I've seen a lot of people start with every single resource and piss it all away. You can have nothing and have a grandma who believes in you and achieve the greatest heights. The amazing thing about America is that this is what the opportunity this country affords. It affords you the opportunity to work very hard and get ahead. It's why people all over the world still want to come into our country because they know there is no real ceiling for success. The problem with the whole way DEI got snuck in is that it was laundered as just an extension of civil rights era progress, when in fact it was truly toxic, regressive, and tearing apart the foundation of the idea that we can all equally try and achieve our dreams.
Regardless of skin color. Like your skin color shouldn't matter.
Regardless of skin color. I still believe in that dream. I think a lot of people in America still believe in that dream. So much of a society's ideas of itself, it's a lot like believing in fairies.
I do believe in fairies.
You have to have a nation that believes these truths about themselves, even at times when they're not true. And you have to have people striving for these ideals, even if we aren't perfectly achieving them. And in the past decade, it's been very doomsayer. The idea that this is a systemically racist society that you can never get outside of, and that it's white supremacist to its core. And what message does that send any person of color? that they have any kind of chance of success. It's actually the most racist, and it is so undermining of their own potential. You're going to hear from liberal friends, and you're going to hear from people who are not even remotely as engrossed and seeped in this bullshit as I am, that, oh, this is just Trump making it so corporations and the federal government can be racist again. This is Trump just rolling back civil rights. Do not let people do that to you. People are going to say this is Trump making it legal to discriminate based on race, and it's not. It's actually promoting colorblindness, which, as Coleman Hughes talks about in his fantastic article on Free Press, which we will link below, is more in line with the original intent of the civil rights movement than today's DEI policies.
Does anybody have an East Asian employee?
Oh my God, I won. Bingo.
This is America. We all have the opportunity to succeed in this country. It is true. We are closer to color blindness now than we have been in the past decade with all of this nonsense. It also divides people. It's very divisive, this kind of language. The language of inclusivity is incredibly divisive at its core. And you've seen this. There's higher racial tension now than there was in the 90s when I was a kid coming up. And I hope we can return to that, because there was kind of a golden age of people being able to talk shit to each other and know that we were all just in this together.
Colored.
Redneck.
Jungle Bunny.
Pack of wood.
This might not be my funniest dumpster fire, okay? And we are not a news show, by the way. I am really, truly doing this because I think there's so much actual misinformation going around about what DEI is and what it isn't. And I do believe that most people's heart is in the right place on these things. They believe they are actually manipulating people's good intentions and their belief in the civil rights era policies, programs, and just ideology to launder these ideas that have no place in a meritocracy, a free society, a place like America. And honestly, you should be cheering for this. It's all under the guise of anti-racism. No one wants to be considered racist. Who would want to be considered against? Who wants to be against diversity or equity or inclusion? Nobody wants that. But it was a scam. It was a scam all along. And that scam has been revealed, and now they're dismantling it, and it's good. My fear is that they'll go a little too far, because there is a little bit of a witch hunty vibe around this. There are already memes from Inglorious Bastards of people being like, where's the DEI? Are you hiring the DEI hires? Because when implementing this new DEI policy, the new administration sent out an email to all federal agencies, and it requested info about attempts to disguise DEI offices and employees, hence the memes of Inglorious Bastards. And they said, we are aware of efforts by some in government to disguise these programs by using coded or imprecise language, essentially saying, like, look, we know what you're doing. We know you're trying to hide this shit and cover it up, and it shouldn't be. But I am not in favor of a culture, like a nation of narcs. I am not in favor of this. Get rid of the DEI, get rid of these programs, defund it. The corporate's going to follow. Now they have the okay to be on the wrong side of history or whatever. You can tell by the muted response to this that most people are like, oh, thank God. Even if they're liberal, they're like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. I can take the pronouns out of my email signature. I fucking hated that shit. I didn't even know what it meant. What is a he, she? What is a she? What is a he, her?
I'm Cody. Pronouns em, ers, or zem, zer.
This is nonsense. So much of it is nonsense. It's all academic mumbo jumbo nonsense. If you truly want to know how this happened, go back to our first dumpster fire and watch all of them. We've been covering story after story after story. Math is racist.
When you're good at math, it hurts the black students' feelings.
It does not.
Testing is racist. Get rid of the SATs. All in the name of equal outcomes. And it's really just made our nation dumber and not as competitive. This is my least funny dumpster fire of all time.
Is it though?
You have to stick around through the ad to see the weather report, guys. Sorry. Have you heard about Senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. As we age, everyone accumulates senescent cells in their body. These are think of them as zombie cells. Senescent cells cause symptoms of aging, such as aches and discomfort and slow workout recoveries associated with that middle age feeling. Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of them to thrive in the body. And I'm excited to be partnered with Qualia. I have started taking the Senolytics, which you only have to take 2 days a month. And I took my first dose this month. I definitely do feel like I'm recovering better, and I feel like I'm a little bit more clear-minded. Just, it's slight, it's subtle. I will only be honest with you guys. I know that they say that you really see the benefits after 2 to 3 doses. I'm excited because I already feel like a little more lively. Resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/dumpster for up to 50% off and use the code dumpster at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's QUALIA life.com/dumpster for an extra 15% off your purchase. Don't forget to like, subscribe, touch my bells and buttons, tell your friends about us. You can send them my TED Talk about DEI and be like, this bitch is normally crazy, but please help us reach our goal of 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We just become like an educational tool for liberals who are stumbling out of the culture wars. They're like, what's DEI? What's intersectionality?
How do I explain this to my friends when they call me a racist?
This is a good episode for those of you who might have some liberal friends and family members who are telling you that you're a racist bigot. You can actually turn around and say, no, you're the racist bigot. And here's why. Now let's check the weather with Susana Alameda.
Bastante cerca del occidente de la República, ocasionando lluvias fuertes para Nayarit, Jalisco, Colima y Michoacán. Estas pueden venir acompañadas de fuertes tormentas eléctricas y granizadas para que tomen precauciones, como vemos en los mapas de pronóstico.
Thank you, Susana. If you love Dumpster Fire, the best thing you can do is become a supporter at Phetasy.com. We did this 4 days a week this week. The only way we can keep doing that the way we want to is if you subscribe to Phetasy.com, all of you, every single one of you. You also get the unedited version of this Dumpster Fire, and we leave a lot of inappropriate things on the cutting room floor, and you get access to everything else we're doing. People who are asking me when another round and factory settings are coming out, they will be coming out monthly from here on. You will be getting another round next week. You will be getting factory settings soon thereafter. Just so you know, all of these things will be coming monthly, and they will be dropping on Wednesdays
at Phetasy.com.
For our supporters. Factory Settings is a podcast I do with my husband. Another round is Maggie and I shooting the shit about whatever. We are changing the Dumpster Fire launch schedule. They will now launch Tuesday and Friday evenings for the foreseeable future. We might also be dropping in some random extras to try and keep up with the news cycle. So please, at the very least, join our free newsletter at Phetasy.com. We will always give you a heads up when we have a new episode coming out. We move Watkins Welcome off of this YouTube channel. We had Michael Malice on this week. Go run over there and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Watkins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. There's a link in the description. We have so many cool guests coming this year. And you guys, I freaking love you. I do. My audience is rad. You guys are the coolest people on the internet, and you're all polite and funny and hilarious. And I just adore you. And I want to thank you and be so grateful, because you guys are the reason we show up over and over again. Thank you to everyone who helps make Dumpster Fire possible. Thank you to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode. And now, to cleanse your palate, the internet is glorious.
Good.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. Are you smiling?
No. I'm horrified.
Remember, life is absurd. Don't take yourself so damn seriously. Take the work seriously. Don't take yourself seriously. This has been your Dumpster Fire. I'm Bridget Phetasy. Now make me rich so I can do this 4 or 5 days a week and Maggie will lose her mind.
This week almost killed me.
Maggie almost died this week. The pace I want. I'm like the Elon Musk around here.
we can do more.
I
definitely need an intern.
We need an intern.
And the unicorns dance while the world burns, world burns.